In the 1970s, in a quiet residential area of Norwood Park, Chicago, Illinois, no one would have guessed that one of America's most brutal serial killers was living among them. John Wayne Gacy was a model citizen, a successful businessman, and a respected man in the community. He owned a small construction company, participated in many charity activities, and was especially famous for his role as Pogo the Clown, a character he dressed up as to perform at children's parties and hospitals. His friendly appearance, warm smile, and sense of humor made him loved by everyone. But behind that mask was a terrible secret, a series of crimes that lasted more than 6 years, with at least 33 victims, most of them teenagers, who were brutally tortured and murdered. How could such a person be on the run for so many years without anyone suspecting anything? Let's delve into this haunting story, where every unsolved mystery holds secrets longing to be revealed. Step into the shadows and discover them with hidden truths. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. His childhood was far from peaceful. His father, an abusive alcoholic, frequently beat and belittled him. Gacy tried desperately to earn his father's approval, but never succeeded. At age 11, he suffered a severe head injury, which significantly altered his personality. Coupled with being ostracized by his peers due to his weak health and heart condition, the psychological trauma from his past slowly gave birth to the monster within. After graduating from college in 1963, Gacy found a job at a shoe company in Chicago. Working hard and being friendly with his colleagues, Gacy quickly rose through the ranks and became a manager shortly after. Gacy was very active in community activities, often organizing parties to invite people around and being close to children in a clown costume Pogo. Getting married in 1964, Gacy and his wife moved to another city. They had a full and desirable life for many people. Gacy was even considered an ideal citizen, friendly, sociable, and active in social and charitable activities. But that image gradually became a cover to help him cover up his crimes and deviant lifestyle. Gacy soon revealed his homosexual tendencies and showed interest in sexual behavior with young boys. Planning to commit depraved acts, Gacy built the basement into a gathering place, a place for entertainment, with alcohol, beer, books, newspapers, and obscene movies to lure curious, playful boys. After the victims were drunk or unable to resist, Gacy committed acts of sexual abuse without any difficulty. In 1968, Gacy was arrested for sexually assaulting a 16-year-old boy. He lured the boy to his home, promising a high-paying job, but then assaulted him. Although sentenced to 10 years in prison, Gacy served only 18 months due to good behavior. But instead of reforming, he became even more dangerous. Gacy was a master manipulator, using deception and charm to gain the trust of his victims. Most of them were young men and teenage boys, ranging in age from 14 to 21 years old, many of whom were vulnerable, underprivileged, or runaways. Some were looking for jobs, others were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. As a respected member of the community in Chicago, Illinois, Gacy led a double life. He owned a construction business called PDM Contractors, where he frequently hired young men. He used the promise of employment as a way to lure his victims, offering them a job with good pay. Many of the young men who accepted his offer had no idea they were walking into a death trap. In other cases, Gacy pretended to be a police officer or offered victims a ride in his car, especially those he found hitchhiking. He even approached boys at bus stops, shopping malls, and outside clubs. If persuasion didn't work, he resorted to force, abducting victims against their will. Once inside his home at 8213 West Somerdale Avenue, Gacy would sometimes offer his victims drinks, drugs, or even show them pornography to make them feel comfortable. However, the real nightmare began when he introduced what he called the rope trick. He would tell his victims that he knew a magic trick and demonstrate by placing handcuffs or tying a rope around his own wrists, slipping out easily. Then, he would ask his victims if they wanted to try it. The moment they agreed, he would bind their hands tightly, trapping them in his control. Gacy would mock his victims, telling them that if they were smart enough, they could escape, but the trick was a lie. Once they were helpless, He sadistically tormented them for hours or even days before killing them. His methods of torture were horrific. He raped and sexually assaulted many of his victims. He used sharp objects like ice picks to stab them. He burned them with cigarettes. He choked them until they lost consciousness, only to let them wake up and suffer more. He forced some of his victims to crawl on all fours and act like dogs while he laughed at their humiliation. Gacy took pleasure in inflicting pain, showing no remorse or pity. When he finally decided to kill his victims, he would usually strangle them with a rope or garrote, tightening it slowly around their necks while watching them die. After killing his victims, Gacy needed a place to hide the evidence. Instead of disposing of the bodies elsewhere, he buried most of them in the crawl space beneath his house. He personally dug shallow graves and stacked the bodies on top of one another, covering them with lime to reduce the smell of decomposition. The crawl space eventually became a horrifying mass grave, with bodies packed so tightly that Gacy ran out of space. As his killing spree continued, he had to start disposing of bodies in the nearby Des Plaines River. What made Gacy's case even more disturbing was his public image as a friendly, charitable man. He was known in his community for dressing as a clown, calling himself Pogo the Clown, and entertaining children at charity events and parties. This disguise allowed him to blend into society and maintain the illusion of being a caring, responsible citizen. However, his clown persona hid a monstrous reality, one that only came to light when authorities finally uncovered the truth behind the disappearances of so many young men. Gacy's downfall began in December 1978, when 15-year-old Robert Piest went missing. The teenager had told his mother he was going to meet a man about a job at a construction company. That man was John Wayne Gacy. When Piest never returned home, his family reported him missing, leading police to investigate Gacy. After obtaining a search warrant, authorities discovered a terrifying scene: the bodies of 29 victims buried under his house. More were later found in the river. The gruesome discovery confirmed that Gacy was a cold-blooded serial killer. Gacy was arrested and charged with 33 counts of murder, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in U.S. history. During his trial, he showed no remorse, even claiming insanity as a defense. The trial of John Wayne Gacy took place in February 1980. It was one of the most highly publicized trials in American history. It took the jury just 2 hours to find Gacy guilty of 33 murders, the most victims of any murderer ever tried in the United States at that time. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection. During his time in prison, Gacy never showed any remorse. He even drew pictures of clowns and sold them for high prices, which greatly outraged the public. On May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed. His last words were, "Kiss my ass," a statement that reflected his utter contempt for everything he had done. The story of John Wayne Gacy is one of the most shocking serial killers in American history, exposing the horror of killers with gentle faces hiding in society. Gacy not only took advantage of the image of a friendly man, but also disguised himself as a clown to approach his victims, making his crimes even more horrifying. Of the 33 victims murdered, only 25 were identified through DNA testing, while the identities of the remaining 8 remain a mystery to this day. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this story and want to dive deeper into more intriguing mysteries, be sure to subscribe to Hidden Truths and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.